With spring approaching, everyone is looking for something fresh. Maybe you need a reset. If that's what you're looking for, this is the episode for you. We're going to be talking about the reset and how to reset, some of our favorite ways to reset.
Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time.
So I love this season because it's a transitional season, and we're going from cozy, kind of Huga season into sunny weather, and flowers are starting to bloom. I know in our yard we had a whole bunch of daffodils that spring up, and then they got snowed on. And Erik was out there clearing the snow off every individual daffodil, trying to give them a fighting chance. And now they're looking good. They're looking strong.
Can I just chime in about this real quick?
Sure.
So we've been doing a lot of sailing this winter. I've mostly been in the Caribbean and the Bahamas, and we've been together for big chunks of that. And the last trip, I did it with our son, and I came home from that trip. Like, I woke up in the morning, shorts, we're at anchor at Cooper Island in the British Virgin Islands. By that night, I land in Salt Lake, and just as Emily pulls up to pick us up at the airport, the snow starts and it's blowing sideways, and I was like, holy cow. And the next morning I'm out shoveling snow, and all these poor daffodils are just buried under. And I think sometimes we're like that as people. We think, oh, it's my time, it's my season. And then we spring up and we try and make a go for it, and then we get dumped on. And so sometimes we do need a reset to help us throw off the snow that has kind of ruined our launch, our new arrival. Anyway, I just think it was such a stark juxtaposition to go from at anchor in the Caribbean in the morning, and then the very next morning to be shoveling 6 inches of snow.
So true. It really changes kind of how you think. It changes how you move through your day. And when you have to put on snow goggles to go or ski goggles to go for your morning walk, it's a very different feeling than grabbing a pair of sunglasses. So in this season, I've been doing kind of a reset of my own, and it isn't just a push a button once and then I'm ready to start over. But if you've been listening here, you've heard me reference a variety of books or podcasts or different things. I love to learn new things. I'm always very curious about how we can grow and expand and evolve as humans, and in ourselves and in our ideas and in our relationships. But sometimes it can just be a lot of churn, and I just have way more ideas than I can do anything about, and I start to feel a little bogged down. Of course, we're always going to learn more or consume more than we act on or create, but I feel like my ratio was getting a little out of balance, and I was feeling pretty dissatisfied with myself. So I decided for Lent, which isn't part of our faith practice, but I'm just jumping on the Lent bandwagon.
Love our Catholic friends.
At the beginning of March, and I wanted to, give something up. And it started with podcasts. And I know that might seem kind of ironic. That might not be the thing for you, but for me, I always had podcasts in my ears, learning, growing, always something edifying. And it would be kind of a multitask at first, like, oh, well, I'll just do the dishes while I listen to this podcast. And then it was like, well, I'll just find some other chores to do so that I can finish this podcast, right? And I would let the podcasts kind of take over. And after a couple of weeks of not listening to podcasts, I decided I also wanted to let go of self-help books. And I think I took a stack of about 15 books back to the library. And then I decided I wanted to add in meditation, but I realized actually I don't have really very much experience with meditation. My favorite part of meditation is I have a friend who meditates every day, and the first thing she does is wrap herself in a blanket. So I was like, I'll just do that part for 10 minutes and make a space for it while I get better at it.
Sounds like a good technique to me.
Yeah. And what I noticed I did one more thing, like this thing just kept building. I turned my phone to grayscale, which means everything shows up in black, white, or some shade of gray on my phone. So social media isn't too interesting. Um, anyway, just I had a lot of inventory in my brain, and I wanted to reduce the inventory and find out what I think. And so it's been really nice, actually. I'm getting used to it, and I can check color pictures on somebody else's phone. And
All our pictures look like they're from the National Geographic
yeah,
or,
like
or Life magazine.
everything goes together. Whatever anyone's wearing, it all matches. But this has been a good reset for me, and it's going to continue on until Easter, right? And towards the end of April this year, 20th of April. And so what I've noticed is that I don't have quite so many thoughts bouncing around in my head or competing for attention. I don't have as many questions that I need to answer. I don't feel like I'm so far behind. Everything just kind of slowed down. And, these days I might have a question. I might be laying in bed and think, oh, I have this question. I don't know the answer to it. It's some trivia. And oh, this is one more thing. I got a digital alarm clock so that I can keep my phone plugged in another room. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be answering that question until tomorrow. So if it's still important tomorrow, then I'll go look up the answer on the internet when I wake up and walk downstairs. So anyway, it's just made a lot more space, a lot more quiet, a lot more stillness, and chance for me to just consider what I think and just to be noticing what's around me more. And it's made more space for me to be journaling, and that's what I mean when I say figure out what I think to some degree. Anyway, I am in the middle of it, and I'm already seeing a lot of benefit, and that's my personal reset. It started out just to be podcasts, but I ended up liking so much having that space that I cleared out a lot of other things that were also filling up my mind. And yeah, it's been really nice. Maybe I can report back once I complete the task, because I still have almost a month to go.
So if you want to do the Emily Spring 2025 reset, stop listening right now, turn this podcast off, and don't come back for a month.
Maybe you have something else that, if it's starting to weigh you down, then it's something to consider, because we certainly want to have the effect of lifting you up, making things feel expansive and possible.
Well,
so I was just going to say that it actually is really helpful to unplug and change your environment sometimes to create those breakthroughs. I'm not completely unplugged from everything, but I've, unplugged a few things.
Well, I want to share an experience that I had during one of our recent trips in the Virgin Islands, because I took out a wonderful family who needed to reset, and we had a great week. And I think I'm going to refrain from including any details about them other than to say it was a family that was just feeling pretty mowed over by responsibilities, obligations, calendars, schedules, inbound emails, texts, and just like needing a break.
Mm-hmm.
So took the mom, dad, and their kids sailing, and we had a fantastic, beautiful week. And it took a few days to get there, but eventually they were able to just sort of like let the responsibilities and the burdens fall away. And just the last half of the trip was just, there was a lot of play, there was a lot of laughter, there was a lot of smiling. And then there's sort of this dread is probably too strong of a word, but sort of this lingering, oh my goodness, but now we have to go back.
Yeah.
Everybody says this at the end of the trip, like, oh, I don't want to go home, I just want to stay. And that's I get it. And so Emily and I, we used to coach, during our sailing trips, but now we separate them. We do sailing trips and we do coaching separate. And so, but I sat down with this couple and we were talking about their life goals and what they wanted to do, kind of
A little bit of coaching.
what their dream life, what they wanted for their dream life. Because it's really, I know this from personal experience. When I was working what I'll call a 9-to-5, or in my case, a 4 to midnight job, and it was a sort of a routine, a groove, a rut, whatever you want to call it, it's pretty hard to kind of get your head above water and get much of a view. You don't get to that top of the tower. You don't get that 30,000 view when you're in your day-to-day routine. And to Emily's point about a reset, getting out of your environment, physically stepping away from your habits, your responsibilities. Yes, you're, a lot of bad ones, but also some good ones. You're not looking at the garage every day thinking, oh, this has got to be cleaned up. You just don't even see the garage for a week, or, the yard needs to be mowed, or whatever project it is, you don't see it. You don't come across it. And so there's a real power in changing your environment, whatever that form takes. And so while we were in a new environment, this couple wanted to we were talking about how to make it different, better upon return. Because everything's going to come right back in, rushing in as soon as you get off the plane. In fact, before you get off the plane. I kind of miss the days when you didn't have Wi-Fi on a plane. Those days are pretty gone for me. But, there's just sort of the world comes back. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to do an exercise. If you've been listening or following us for a while, you've heard of the blue sky questions. We did the blue sky questions. And here's what was important.
Can we share a couple of what they are for people who haven't turned off their podcast right now and
who have not already begun their reset?
Podcast for Lent.
Yeah. So, a couple of the questions are, what would you do if you were not afraid? What would you do if money were no object? What would you do if you knew you would succeed just by trying? What's something that you wanted to try but maybe feel embarrassed or you've been resisting? If your life were a good movie and you were the main character, what would you do next? There's a few more, but that's sort of the vein of them. And Emily does she has a recorded meditation. We just put it on the speakers in the boat and lay out under the stars and listen to this. And then I gave everyone some time to write. So this couple took some time to write. And then we talked about it. And they shared their experiences with me and what their thoughts were. And it was beautiful. And I appreciated their trust. Here's what I said to them. Before you go home, on the plane, write down what your dream week looks like. How does it start? What do you have for breakfast? When do you wake up? What's the routine with the kids? What are you, how much are you working? And the goal here is not to think about how you're going to make any of this happen. It can be as ridiculous or far-fetched as you want. You can say, you know what, I want to wake up at noon and I want to work 15 minutes a day and, and the kids don't go to school, and you can make it whatever you want. The point is to just imagine your dream scenario, your ideal scenario, without trying to undergird it with ideas of how you're going to make it happen. Just go for this is what we refer to as what. What do you want? How comes later. And I gave them a homework assignment, which, so Emily's giving up podcasts and self-help books. We are recording a podcast, and I'm going to recommend this self-help book right here. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics. And I've talked about this book before. I hate the title unless you translate it, because this is Greek for mental navigation, which I'm a huge fan of. Psycho, mental, cyber, which is to steer or to navigate. Psycho-Cybernetics. And so what I told this couple, and what I think one of the things we want to share today, is that one way to reset is to step away from your current environment. Step away from all of your responsibilities and the pressures. And when you do get to that space, find a way to just write down what your dream scenario is going to be without any thought for how it's going to happen. And then I'm going to recommend reading this book. And the reason I recommend this book is because, and I should.
Yeah, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, and you can even look it up on YouTube, and the whole audiobook is there for no charge. You can start listening right now. That's what I did.
Emily has found the ways.
Maybe it's still there.
The thing that I love about this book is he says, hey, you know, our subconscious is designed to pursue the thing that we want the most. And if you can just imagine, visualize, articulate somehow what your dream scenario is, you can then sort of rest and let your mind go to work, and it will gradually steer you there. It sounds a little woohoo. It sounds a little too good to be true, but I've seen it happen. And so if you can articulate what it is you want, and then just rest in that idea, you start making your way there. And so that's what I said to this couple. I was like, just by writing down what your dream scenario is, you've sort of planted this seed, and then let your mind mentally navigate yourself there. It's going to be lots of corrections, overcorrections. You're going to always be left or right of the target, but eventually you come back to it and you arrive, oftentimes sooner than you ever imagined. So I just think if you're looking for a quick 1, 2, 3 on how to reset, step away, imagine your dream scenario, and then learn about
Write it down,
and then read this book, Psycho-Cybernetics. We get no commission from it. Just
And one of the things that we found is that when people do come on these sailing trips, it is so different from their everyday that it's, as much as it's a beautiful location, a fun vacation, great photos, great memories, it actually can have a lasting effect on the rest of your life if you're willing to make it that reset.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect way to unplug and reconsider your priorities and make some changes.
So for spring 2025, if you want to reset, this episode's for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Come to the Mediterranean or
join
us on some of our trips this year.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And if you want to go sailing too, we do have trips.
We host trips. All right. What could go right?
Hey guys, before we wrap up, 2 things. I want to give you the sailing update, and then I want to give you the sailing takeaway. Real quick, as we wrap up with Q1 of 2025, I want to tell you what's on the docket coming up. I'm heading to the Bahamas this weekend, but after that, we've got some trips over in Europe and the Mediterranean. We're going to be in Italy, June 7th through the 14th. Currently, 2 cabins available. So if you hear this early enough and you make your deposit by March 31st, you get a $500 flight credit. So there's that. We're going to be in Greece, July 19th through the 26th. And then we're going to be in Croatia, August 2nd through the 9th. So those are our European trips. And then we've got, jumping to the fall, we've got La Paz, Mexico, the Sea of Cortez. That's going to be October 20th through the 25th. British Virgin Islands, November 10th through the 15th. And then the Bahamas, December 8th through the 13th. So that's the lineup for the rest of this year. So if any of those sound fun to you, hit me up. We'll talk, see if it's fit. Also, last thing, I like at the end of our trips, I like to share what people have taken away. So I asked them a couple of questions. They're kind enough to share their answers with me and give me permission to share them with you. So here's a takeaway from somebody who came sailing with us recently.
What kind of clothes to bring? So I brought way too many clothes.
Okay.
Because I've never been on a sailing trip before, and I didn't know what I was going to want. What was the other question? What was it? What I was delightful?
So that's something that you were unsure of. What's something that was unexpectedly delightful for you?
Everything was unexpectedly delightful. Like I cannot believe the group that came together. I just love everybody. It's been amazing. And the scenery, I don't love the water, but I love the water.
We all know what she means, right?
Totally good. What was the other question?
If you were going to say something short to somebody that was thinking about coming, what would you say?
Absolutely do it. Absolutely. 100%.
All right. Cool.